Welcome to the third grade six weeks curriculum preview. It looks like we've made it. We have made it, and great job to you. I know you still have STAR in front of you, but we are coming to the close of another great year, and I just want to thank you for all the work that you do with our kids. Let's take a look at the reading expectations for Unit 6. The reading independently is still the same. We want them for greater than 20 minutes at a time. Really want them 60 minutes at a time, 60 minutes during the day to really improve their instructions. That means they're going to be reading independently, and then they're going to be reading in guided reading groups with you. The one thing that we've added here for the 6 weeks is apply reading strategies to gather information on a research topic, because research will be our main lead standard this 6 weeks. We want students to be at a level P or stronger, so looking at those. So our reading expectations are still the same about the weekly reading responses. You know that you can use the rubric to get a grade for literary responses using your tic-tac-toe. We want them writing at least 90% of the time in cursive, accurate letter formation, all that, making sure they're doing a great job with that. Now's a good time to really hone in on the rubric for independent reading. Are they really reading and being strategic about their reading? How are you growing as a reader is in the curriculum be a great way in what to put into their folders as they go on next year. Is how have you grown as a reader this year, a PDSA of that. One of the best grades that you can get for reading is a running record or a reading record, because it shows you exactly where that child is. And I'm going to show you the difference when we say running records and reading records. Running records is where you take a book and then you have a piece of paper and you just go along and just mark each words, and then when a student makes a mistake you kind of write it down, but you don't have the words. Just do it kind of like on the run. A reading record is like the one you see here where the words are there before you, and most of the time we know that, but that's called a reading record. One of the things as we go out and talk to the campuses about the new literacy framework is we introduce how you can get 3 grades from a running record. So it's really worth your bang a buck. Not only that you'll know where your kids are, but you'll get 3 grades. After that student has done the running record or the reading record, you come over here to the use of strategies, and every time that child has reread, you make a tally mark. Every time they sound out a word, you put a tally mark. Every time they have an ineffective strategy. For instance, they skip a word or they add words that are not in the text. They substitute a word. You make a tally mark. Then how you get the grade for use of strategies is the number of effective strategies used is divided by the number of strategies used in all, effective and ineffective. And that gives you a grade for strategies. Then, of course, you'll have your accuracy grade, and then you'll have a fluency grade. So you get 3 grades off of this one running record. Also, running records usually are around about 100 words. So if you want a grade on comprehension, what you do is you would say, give the child that book and say, finish reading the book, and then come back and let them summarize or write a summary at the 3rd grade level about this book, or just ask them to retell and ask some basic questions for comprehension. So it's a great way to get grades and just to really know where your kids are. Let's take a look at word study. Once again, we know that we need to really be picking out great vocabulary words and putting them into their reading notebook, and then doing different things. Still, the FRIAR model is one of the best that can do it, but it's not the only one. But just doing different activities in their work. So let's look at the English word study for this week. 31 to 32 is high frequency word with abstract vowels. So it shows you here what's going on here. Week 33 and 34 is words with CH and TCH. Catch the cheerful finch. Here's the actual spelling bee reminder that you put in there. Week 35 and 36, you're doing words with GE and DGE. Word work number 23 and spelling reminder number 13, and then you have a spell check at the end of that. Really important that when they leave 3rd grade that they know all these grade 3 core in a snap sight words, and that they take those home in their reading notebook to really practice over summer so they don't lose it. And also grade 1 through 3 homophones and misused words. So these are things that we really want them to be very secure and know it in a snap. So great things for them to remind themselves that they need to take a look at over the summer. The academic vocabulary for this particular unit is all around the research. Some very important words like paraphrasing and plagiarism, reliable sources, skimming, works cited page. Some of those are really very important to understanding research. So let's look at reading. Of course, once again, research gathering the sources is the lead standard. Your process still is independent reading. You're going to be reading that comprehension level. We have the genres of poetry and research. And then once again, you have complex consonants and then abstract vowels and then those sight words. So in poetry, you really want to take a look at some really amazing ways that poets have researched what they're doing. Like in this one, Douglas Florian, he looks at the different animals and uses what he knows about animals to create poems. So as we look at research, we can say that sometimes poems can be about the research that we have done. It also is, April is National Poetry Month. This is the website that says of different ways to celebrate Poetry Month. I've taken this right off their webpage. It's just some great fun things to do with poetry. As the kids write poetry, after Star, I'd invite you just to spend a week exploring poetry and letting them write poetry and maybe having a poetry celebration at the end of the week and doing some of these things that are really fun so they really understand that poetry is just such a great genre. So as we get ready for the star, here's some different ways that we can do some different things to really help them have good strategies. We want to model the three kinds of thinking that they do, note-taking in the independent station. You see how they could, with their independent reading, you could teach them how to look at what does the author tell us about within the text, what does the author tell us beyond and about. Even modeling this with a passage would be great. And then freeze time at least once a week. Color code 1 or 2 paragraphs to determine how the writer uses freeze times to develop a coherent paragraph. And then ask them in their independent reading time to do freeze time with one paragraph that they're reading. So it just slows them down to take a look at how words come together to give you meaning. Another great thing to do is use the 3-box planner with a passage. You model this, how to read closely to get the heart of the message, and then walk the boundaries to see how the author wrote that selection. And then show them how they make a summary, how it will create the best summary that usually is most missed on STAR is which is the best summary. So this is a great activity to use with kids with summary. Now let's take a look at some of the comprehension toolkit lessons. Lesson 10 is about how you using context clues to unpack vocabulary, and they're always in there in STAR. So using that lesson 10 with maybe the lesson guide, I'm going to put that in Canvas for you, the lesson guide. If you don't have the book, you can use this with any passage. It doesn't just have to be a fiction, it can be nonfiction. I would practice it with fiction and nonfiction so kids get the idea. Going through that lesson, so rich, and it kind of gives kids that understanding of what they might need to do. Well, it's just what they need to do as a good reader. The other lesson is wrap your mind around the big ideas, which is in the comprehension toolkit. Lesson 15, use text features to infer themes. And then you can use an alternate mentor text with that. Any text will work with that. What's the evidence in text? What's the theme? The very last book, Summarize and Synthesize, the toolkit was never meant to just do the lesson one time. It is a rinse and repeat kind of curriculum or a resource. It's not a curriculum, but it's a resource. So the Comprehension Toolkit Lesson 26, create a summary response to extend thinking. The one that goes with it is the Comeback Humpbacks. And I got it out of the Keep Reading, but you could find other ones to do that with, and just over and over teaching kids how to write summary. So those are some great, really learning activities to do. We've already looked at that one. So now let's take a look at the research project that after STAR, what you're going to do. What I'd really like for you to do, Dawn and I have talked about it, we really like for you to combine your ELAR and social studies this 6 weeks. And this is such a great unit, author study. And it's Unit 9, Social Studies, Pearson My World, Chapter 8, Lesson 2. So combining those. So let's take a look at what that looks like. So we use the Big 6 in Birdville. Your librarian knows everything about it. There are 6 different steps to that. So we're going to take a look at that. I've given you a link here for you to go out to get more information. But once again, the librarian is your best friend. So the first step is to generate questions for research. So you don't really even have to do that, because in the social studies curriculum preview, you have a great one already that says, how do writers and artists contribute to the cultural heritage of our communities? That is one of the, so they would pick one of the authors or one of the writers, the artists or writers, and discuss and look at their different works. So they'd pick the question about what they wanted to do. So look at that, and then you would start gathering information, gathering for note taking. How I did it in my classroom, I just put the thing across the top, and I would fold the paper into like 6 different pieces. And so as the student used a resource, then they would paraphrase. And so here's where that academic vocabulary comes in. You would paraphrase what that source said, and then you would cite it. So when they go to synthesize that information to what they want to write, then they have it all right there. But it can be done in lots of different ways. So in the reading, they're going to be reading, getting a question, and they're going to be gathering resources and then and finding ways to find resources. Um, they can be like, let's go back for just a minute. This could be, they could actually, after they know what their question is, then that second step that's right here, information seeking strategies and location and access. So what are the ways that how can I get information and location and access? They could even do videos and watch videos on their authors or their writers. That would be a great way to do that. And then once again, the note taking is really within the writing process, because when you look at it, and a lot of your writing is going to be around that particular thing. Students organize and present their ideas and information according to the purpose of the resource. They're expected to draw conclusions through a brief written explanation and create a works cited page from notes, including the author, title, publisher, and publication year of each source used. So those are some of the important skills that we need to teach these kids how to do. And we want them using cursive doing that. And then also one of the conventions that they need to be looking at is what kind of historical periods do I capitalize? We need them really to be at a stage 8 when they leave us in 3rd grade, really stronger at 9 and 10 for that next year. So what are some of the focus lessons? The following paired text writing project is provided as an example. Read this quote by Anthony Robbins. It is not what you get, but who we become, what we contribute, that gives meaning to our lives. So you could start with that quote and say, discuss the importance of contributing. Who benefits most? Why? Explain that people make contributions in many ways. A contribution can be something concrete like an invention or something abstract. And then read from the author's work. Then choose those authors and those writers, and then ask the librarian to help you to, how do you focus this? How do you get this information? Where does it come from? So as you look at the different standards, follow the research plan to collect information from multiple sources of information, both oral and written. Then they could do inspections, interviews, data from experts, reference text. Use skimming and scanning techniques to identify data by looking at text features. Then take simple notes and sort that into categories like I talked about. Then once again, identify the title, publisher. And then big one is that when we're teaching kids to take information from like websites or whatever, please don't let them copy and paste, because we need to differentiate between paraphrasing and plagiarism. And really understanding that when you copy and paste someone else's words, those are not your words, those are theirs, and that's called plagiarism. And that teaching them, so there might need to be a lesson on, okay, I've looked at this is how you paraphrase. So very important. And then about citing and your sources that you use. So those are some of the focus lessons. Then once they get that information, they begin to write. You want to show them how they still can use the 3-box planner to plan it, how they can use freeze time to fully develop main ideas and get those 3 boxes and really honing in on developing a great paragraph, and then using stop throughout the whole thing to look at, am I telling enough? Am I using my conventions? So you use all those things to do your research, because you need to really write about them. Another one of the standards is persuasive. So use, if once once you have you've finished with your research, or you might want to start persuasive before you do research, just briefly talk about what's the purpose of it, and then get an anchor chart about, and then put that in the writer's notebook, and then show them the structure is really the same. You start with why you want to write this, and then you tell the reasons why you want to persuade somebody to do that. So an example is, you would also maybe model for them writing a persuasive letter to the librarian to buy literature that is your favorite. And then another mini lesson might be just brainstorming different ideas about to write, and help them to understand that when they write persuasively, it needs to be about things that are issues in their life. Like they want to persuade their mom and dad what's a good reason for buying a swimming pool for the summer, or buying tickets to Six Flags. What's the reasoning behind that? Or increasing the allowance. So make it be very relevant to them. Okay, so in the there's still going to be independently writing during the research. We're going to write, because you really do need to have that written explanation, and then reflecting each day on that celebration. One of the things, as you begin to share your research, I do believe it needs to be a writing piece, but then also I'd encourage you to let the kids do their project, not just in writing, to have them write about what they've researched, but then let them do some fun things with digital things, like make a video about it, make a poster about it. Another thing is using Google Slides. They could use Google Slides to put their information. That's just a really cool way. So I hope you understand how we really do want you to use social studies and ELAR together. Also, please make sure to go and look at the social studies curriculum preview, because there Dawn has highlighted books that, from Learning A to Z and Raz Kids, that highlight and go with your unit. So those are the things that they could be independently reading and to use at that time. So I hope that you'll have a great time with the research. If you have some really great research projects, Dawn and I would love to come out and be a part of those. So good luck on STAR, and good luck with research in poetry and persuasive writing. Just thank you for a great year.